William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Dallas Public Library. My name is Jill Azaria and I'm in charge of the grants collection here at the library. For those of you who are not familiar with the grants collection, it is located upstairs on the 6th floor. We have a wealth of information for nonprofit agencies, everything from writing proposals to retaining and recruiting board members and volunteers, how to do your budget. Anything like that will be located upstairs on 6th, and I do welcome all of you to come up and take a look at our collection. We are also what is known as a network collection of the Foundation Center. The Foundation Center is sort of like the mother lode where you can find any information at all. It's housed in New York, and they've got probably about 400 network collections across the country. Dallas Public Library is one of those. In addition to all of the publications that the Foundation Center puts out, we also have the Foundation Directory online, which will speed up your searching when you're looking for grants for your nonprofit. This afternoon, we are very fortunate to have somebody, an expert in the field of applying for federal grants. Dina Colarossi works across the street at City Hall and has graciously agreed to come over and teach today's class. Dina has over 10 years experience in writing and managing federal grants and is currently the Fund Development Manager for the City of Dallas. She holds a Master of Public Administration degree from the University of North Texas with a focus on nonprofit management. Let's give Dina a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. No one ever introduces me anywhere, so I always feel really special and loved when Jill gives me such a great introduction. Well, anyway, as Jill said, I'm Dina Colarossi. I do work here at the city. So today we are going to talk about federal grants. What goes into managing a federal grant? How do you write and submit a federal grant? All of those sorts of things. So what kinds of agencies do we have here today? Just so we can kind of get a sense for who you guys are. What do we have? Education. Education? Cool. I'm assuming we've got some social service agencies. What was that?
I said nonprofit social services, youth services.
Youth services? Okay, great, cool.
Literary arts.
Literary arts, perfect. So what we're going to talk today is, like I said, just about federal grants. Now, this isn't going to be a grant writing class. We're not going to go through the ins and outs of how to put together a budget or how to write up your narrative. There's lots of resources out there that you can go to find those sorts of things. What we're really going to talk about today is how federal grants are different from some of the other grants you guys might be used to, foundation grants and things like that. We always assume, and usually in this class we have a lot of people who've written grants before, so how many people have actually got some experience in writing grants? Okay, so quite a few of you are kind of familiar with what that process looks like. Well, like I said, today we're going to talk about how those grants might be a little bit different from the federal grants and what some of the requirements on federal grants are. So that's that. So what is a grant? I like to start here because I talk to basically tons of people at the city every week, every day, and I hear a lot of really funny things that they say, things that they think grants are that they really aren't. So what is a grant? Well, it's money, right? But it's not free money. I like to say it's an exchange of paper. They're paper check for our paper reports. Okay, so there is some work involved in getting a grant. They do typically fund a specific project or program, especially coming from the federal government. You're not going to find a lot of grants out there for just, hey, it's just some money, spend it on whatever you want, whenever you feel like it. And there's a couple different types of grants. We grants that are based on a formula, typically like a math equation, typically population, and then whatever the grant is based on. The most well-known of those is CDBG, the Community Development Block Grants run out of HUD. That's based on population and poverty levels. We have some other formula grants. We have a Justice Assistance Grant here at the city that funds the criminal justice system. That's going to be based on population and Part 1 crime. So you kind of get a sense for what those are. We have competitive or discretionary grants, which is just like you think. You write an application, send it in, some kind of scoring process. They get ranked. Some people get funded, some people don't. And then there's another type of grant that the federal government does a lot, which are called cooperative agreements. And those can work a lot like either formula or competitive grants. But there's a little bit more involvement with the federal government. It's more of a partnership than it's just, hey, you have a program, we're going to give you money to fund it, and that's it. So what isn't a grant? Like I said, it's not a magic pot of money. It doesn't sit there and wait for you. Typically, they're going to have a performance period, a start date, and an end date. They're going to be specifically to the project that you submitted, especially on federal grants. You submit a budget. They want you to stick to that budget. They funded you over everybody else because of what you put in that application. As I said, usually not going to be for operational costs. Not going to get grants to keep the lights on, right? They're typically going to be program-based. Only those program costs are going to be allowable. And I like this one. It's not the road runner, right? So we don't want to chase funds. You always want to make sure that rather than going out and saying, oh, here's a really cool grant, I can do a project for that. You don't want to do it that way. That's not going to give you good results. You want to make sure that you develop your projects first, then go out and look for funding that actually fits those needs rather than the other way around. And that's true, I think, for all grants, really. So here's kind of our grants life cycle. We're going to take a really quick run around this whole thing. We may not get to audit too much, but we'll kind of play it by ear and see how time goes. So getting ready to apply. So what do you need when you're going to get ready to apply for a federal grant? So this is just a little idea of kind of what we talk about when we talk about the federal government, right? So all of the funding doesn't actually come from the president. The president submits a budget, and then Congress can completely ignore it if they feel like it. So all of your money is actually coming from Congress, not the president. Once it gets into the administration, it goes to all these funding agencies, right? Those are the departments we hear about. Department of Labor, EPA, Department of Justice, Homeland Security, right? Those are all those big funding agencies. Then within those funding agencies, there are grant or program offices. Typically, they might be called something different in every agency. And that's really where your money is coming from. That's who's managing your program. You're going to have a program manager sitting in that program office. They're going to be the ones who handle the scoring, they write the RFPs, that whole thing. If you ever hear, what happened? Oh, do we have a plug, Jill? This is really embarrassing. My laptop has like 2 minutes of battery and I forgot to plug it in. So I'm just going to wing it. I have absolutely no idea. I don't have a copy of the presentation, but we're just going to go through. I do actually. This is really terrible. Actually, let me get one from up there. I think Jill has extra copies. Than I normally am. I'm usually a lot more prepared than this. So as I was saying, once you get through Congress, down to those department level agencies, then you have your program offices underneath that. So are we ready to submit a federal grant? There's going to be a couple of questions that you want to ask yourself before you even think about looking for federal funding. The number one, the big one is, are we legally incorporated? Do I actually, have I actually incorporated with the state of Texas as a nonprofit? If you haven't actually done that, you probably want to do that before you apply for federal funding. I know I would not want to submit a grant under my own social security number because I have no idea what the tax implications of that are, right? So you don't want to go submit agencies that are eligible for federal funding. And most of the things that we're going to talk about would apply to nonprofits, for-profits, anyone who wants to apply. So you want to think about, does our financial management meet federal standards? First of all, do I even have a financial management system, right? Or am I just still working off the checkbook and the bank website? Can you segregate funds? Can you say, this $100,000 came from this source, this $100,000 came from another source? Some of the other things you want to look at when you're thinking about your financial system, can you actually produce a year-end report? Does your financial system let you say, this is this fiscal year and this is that fiscal year? In the government here, we're working off fiscal years, right? We go from October to September. So those are all sorts of things, and it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be crazy. QuickBooks will actually do all of those things, but you want to make sure it's in place before you even think about applying for federal funding. Do we have good internal controls? Do I have checks and balances within my organization? Can one person get an invoice, pay the check, and do everything else? Or do I have one person getting the invoice, handing it over, making sure it's an actual invoice, handing it over to somebody else to pay? Do I need 2 signatures on a check? Those sorts of things. If I buy a truck, can anybody just hop in it because I keep the keys in the ignition? Can anybody just hop in it and take it for a joyride if they feel like it? Or do I keep those keys locked up somewhere? Those are all examples of internal controls, all the ways that we make sure that we're properly spending our money, that nobody's doing things like embezzling or stealing, and that we're just taking care of the things that we have used federal money for. It's really important to remember that when we talk about federal funds, we're talking about our money, right? That's all our tax dollars. That's our income tax that goes to that. So I know that I would not like it if somebody took my dollars and wasted them or threw them away or let somebody steal them. So it's important to remember that a lot of the things that feel really bureaucratic about the federal government are based on the idea that that's our money in the first place. We want to guard it the same way we would guard our own bank accounts, right? And then do we line up with federal priorities? That's a really important one. The federal government has very specific priorities that they have. And they're not going to fund things that are outside those priorities. Okay? You don't do just what the federal government wants you to do. They are probably not going to fund your project. They're not going to fund your application. The last thing to keep in mind, do you have enough money in the bank? Most grants are reimbursements. So you might get reimbursed like quarterly. You spend $10,000 that quarter, you need to make sure you have it in the bank so that you can spend it before you get reimbursed by the federal government. You really don't get advances on federal money. Some programs do, but not a lot. All right. So once we've kind of gone through and asked ourselves all of those questions, we know we're ready to have a good financial system, our QuickBooks is ready to go. There's a couple of other things that we're going to need, and we're going to kind of go through these with you, let's see if we can see them. But you guys have handouts, so we're just going to wing it. Okay, great, thank you. So there's a couple of things that we need. First, we're going to need a tax identification number. That's like a social security number for your business or your nonprofit. DUNS number, and then a couple of registrations that we have to go through. So the tax identification number, like I said, this is just like the social security number for your business. You get this from the IRS. You can either do it online or by a paper copy. It's a lot quicker when you do it online. I would suggest doing it that way. You do have to be legally incorporated before you can get that EIN number. So that's just, again, something to keep in mind. You want to make sure you're legally incorporated up front. You just submit a real simple form. It doesn't have a ton of information on it. It's just your name, your business address, who your contact person is, things like that. And you should get that back really, really quickly. It usually takes, I think, about 1 or 2 days. It's actually immediate, I think, if you do it online. It's real quick. And then a couple weeks later, you'll get a paper in the mail. You should have your number before that. My husband just did this for his business. He just incorporated. It was a really, really easy process. It's nothing to be scared of. Once you have that EIN, you're going to turn around and get something called a DUNS number. And the DUNS is like a second social security number with the federal government. It's basically a contracting system that the federal government uses. And it's a number that's assigned by Dun & Bradstreet, if you've ever heard that corporation name. So Dun & Bradstreet gives you a number, and that allows you to do business with the state, with the federal government. It's going to be required for all federal grants. It's usually required for state grants as well. So we're not really talking about state grants here, that's a different animal altogether. But if you are looking at state of Texas grants, you're probably going to need that DUNS number. So it's just good to have. All of this stuff is free to get. You don't have to pay for any of this. Somebody comes up to you and says, give me $500 and I'll give you your DUNS number, say no. No, I'm not gonna do that. And people will do that. People actually send me emails that say, oh, you have to renew your DUNS number. Pay me $500 and I'll do that for you. And I say, oh, it takes 10 minutes. I don't need you. So like I said, in the presentation, there's a link to the website. It's, again, a really, really simple form. You want to be sure that you've got your same address and things like that. I actually just did DUNS number I serve on the board of a nonprofit here local in Dallas. And I actually just did our DUNS number because we've never gotten it before. And it's a really easy process. You go, you type in your name, it'll look up people with your name, you pick the one that's you give them some other information, you submit it, and then that usually takes about 1 business day before you're going to get that particular number back. Once you get that, there's a couple places you have to go to register. The big one is sam.gov. And that is basically, it's called the System of Award Management. It is a web portal that the federal government uses. It's kind of, they call it a one-stop portal. I don't think anything at the federal level is a one-stop anything. As you can see, you've got to do all these sorts of things before you get anywhere. Sorry, I'm getting it. So this is the one that takes a long time. This one can take 7 to 10 days. So you want to be sure that if you're ready to submit a federal grant, that you're not waiting until the last minute. Because if you haven't gone and got your tax ID and you haven't gone and got your DUNS number, maybe you can explain that. That DUNS number, or the sam.gov registration is going to take about a week. They've got to verify. So you've got to make sure you're not waiting until the last minute on that one. Yes, sir.
Is there typically a time requirement? Like, so in essence, say you have a nonprofit that you have that number, you have that number a certain amount of time before you can apply for grants typically, or is it?
No, yeah, there's no, you have to wait 6 months or anything like that. No, you can do it at any time, as long as you're leaving yourself enough time before the application is due. But yeah, if you've got a grant due in a month or 2 weeks, you can probably squeeze this process in. I probably would risk it. Like I said, we were looking at applying for grants, and I started the process because I was like, we might as well have it. It doesn't hurt to have it. It doesn't cost anything. So if you do think you're going to do it, you might as well, go ahead and get registered for everything now, so you don't have to worry about it later.
Is the sam.gov registration a one-time thing, or can you do it every year?
So that has to be renewed every year. Okay, everything else that we're talking about here is actually just one time. You don't have to renew your EIN, you don't actually have to renew your DUNS. That sam.gov, you're going to have to go back every year and re-up it. And it's a really simple process. It doesn't take much. You basically click through the website. Unless you've got answers that have changed, it takes about half an hour maybe. Give me just 1 second and we will be back in business here. Yes, ma'am, you had a question back there?
I just received a notice that, I guess my registered SAM, but that was, when I was going through the process, I saw something under my nose, which says that, I needed to make a correction. Who do I call to make a correction? Because I wanted to put joint business in, but they didn't put DBA.
Oh,
So
you're done.
would it make a big difference with the, me signing up with the, because everything is being verified, but would it make a big difference?
It won't, no, as long as you're getting verified all the way through, it won't make a difference.
It won't.
Now, you do want to be careful when you're submitting grant applications.
Yeah.
They may come back to you and say, hey, your DUNS has this name on it, but you submitted as this name. So you just want to be careful of that. But other than that, you shouldn't really have too much issue with, as long as they're verifying you every step of the way, you should be okay. We do that a lot here. People will submit as like the Dallas Public Library or the Dallas Police Department. And every now and then I'll get a call back from a granting agency saying, hey, your DUNS says City of Dallas. So what's the deal? And we just have to change it. It's usually not that big a deal. Sometimes they say, oh, go change your DUNS number. And I say, no, you're going to change the application. We're not changing the DUNS number. Yeah, so as I was saying, this is the one that, that sam.gov, that's the one that takes a long time. So do not wait till the last minute by any stretch of the imagination. You may also get a cage code with that. That is something that we have one. I've never ever had to use it. That cage code gives you the opportunity to have different locations for your agency underneath one DUNS number. That's all it does. So you can have multiple cage codes associated with one DUNS. I've never had to give it to anybody on a grant application in 10 years. No one has ever asked for my cage code. So it's not that big a deal. It's just another piece of information that they're going to send you. All right, so then the last one that we want to talk about is our Grants.gov registration. Okay, we'll get into Grants.gov here in just a minute. But Grants.gov is, the federal government likes to call it the one-stop shop for all of their federal grants. It's not, but they like to say that it is. That's where a lot of your grant applications will be found, and you may have to apply through Grants.gov. So again, the registration is pretty, I think it's almost immediate, or the approval's the same day. Pretty quick process, but you definitely don't want to leave this till the end. If you come up and you say, oh no, this grant's due tomorrow, you are not going to have time to get through all this stuff. You want to leave yourself, like I said, I'm on the board of a nonprofit. I'm doing it all now, and we don't even have an application that we're looking at writing at this point. There's no harm in getting it done and just having it sitting there. So give me just 1 second. I'm going to get us back in business here. As soon as my laptop decides to work. So just for the record, this laptop was bought with federal funding. You can see that I'm squeezing every ounce of use out of it as I possibly can. I refuse to give it up. I've had it for like 6 years now or something like that. So it works a little slow. Okay, so while that's thinking really hard. So let's talk about it. So now that we've gotten all of our numbers, we're kind of ready to go, right? We know our financial system is in board, we've got our Grants.gov registration, we are ready to go. Let's talk about where we're going to go to find some of this funding. Every book that you ever see or every website that you ever visit, you know, anytime you type in how to find federal grants, they're going to tell you 2 places. And I'm going to tell you something different because I don't think either of those 2 places works very well. They're going to tell you to go to Grants.gov, and they're going to tell you to go to the Federal Register. Well, Grants.gov, as I said before, is not a one-stop shop. It does not necessarily have every grant that the federal government gives out, although it's supposed to. A lot of agencies will post something on Grants.gov, but then they want you to go to their website to actually get all the information. It's also very cumbersome. Has anyone here actually tried to search anything on Grants.gov? You have? How'd you find that?
I didn't.
You did, yeah, pretty miserable, right? It's not the best, it's not Google, right? It's not really the best user experience that you can have. The other place they're going to tell you to go is the Federal Register. The Federal Register is literally everything any Congress or agency has done for a day. If you go and you look at a single day's worth of Federal Register, you sure can read through it, and it will have agency funding announcements out there. But you're going to have to read through about 200 pages of very, very teeny tiny type to get to any of those. So I'm going to tell you not to bother with that. I very rarely, if ever, use the Federal Register. It's just not something that I ever really have a need to go to unless I actually have to look up like authorizing legislation for something for some reason. Honestly, what we use here at the city, what my staff will tell you, is that we use Google. That's our first stop. We actually don't start at Grants.gov. If we have somebody who comes to us and says, hey, we have a really cool project, we'd like to get some funding for it, our first stop is Google. And I'm going to show you why here in just a second. The other thing that you can do, I think we're right here. The other thing that you can do is there are a lot of, almost every agency or every program office is going to have some sort of mailing list that they send out that's going to alert you to grants. I would encourage you, so your literary arts, I would encourage you to go to ILS, which is the Institute for Library, Museum Sciences. Go there, sign up for their notification lists. You might get a lot of email that's not grants, but you'll get notified about their grants. If you know that you're going to do a lot of stuff with youth, and you're trying to get, if you're trying to run a summer internship program, that all comes out of the Department of Labor. Go to the Department of Labor website. See if they've got a mailing list that you can sign up for. That's really, really going to help you, kind of know when this stuff comes out rather than going to grants.gov and having to search through there every single day. One good thing I will say about grants.gov, they send out a daily email notification if you sign up for it. That actually can be useful. Because again, you're not having to peel through hundreds and hundreds of results before you can actually find something useful. So just some searching tips when you go to Google and you're looking for something. Well, you want to start really broad and then you want to start narrowing it down. So as I said, I serve on the board. It's the board of the Friends of the Santa Fe Trail. So, our little trail over in East Dallas connecting White Rock to Deep Ellum. If I'm looking for grants for us, I start with trail. I just type in trail grants. And a lot's going to come up, and maybe not everything's going to be relevant to me. But that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start nice and broad to get as many opportunities as I can. Now, maybe we have a project that we want to put lights in along the trail. Well, after I do my trail grants, maybe I don't see anything. I might type in lighting for trails. Okay, that might pull up a different result. So just like you kind of Google anything else, you want to make sure that you're kind of mixing up what you're searching for, and that you're starting as broad as you can. You don't want to get too specific, right? I'm not going to type in triangular trade structures, shade structures for trails grants. That's probably not going to get me anywhere. But shade for trails just might. So you want to make sure you're doing all that. Another little trick that I like to do is if you do find a grant that you think is a good fit for you, look at what they've awarded in the past. Or if you see in the newspaper that somebody got a grant, see if you can find out who they got that grant from. See if you can figure out, Google it. See if you can figure out where their money came from. Because then that could be an opportunity for you the next time around. Most grants on the federal level anyway are year over year. They release them time and time and time again with very little variation. You do want to be prepared no matter what. Just like any other grant searching, you're going to click through a lot of ones that don't fit before you find the ones that do. So just be prepared that it's a process, it's not immediate. And then like I said, make sure you sign up for those mailing lists. So real quick here, I'm going to leave the presentation I just got back into. And we're going to take a real quick walk through grants.gov just so just so you guys can see it, can feel what it feels like, and kind of see a little bit of why I say don't go there, don't bother. And we can all pretend that this was like up, like it was before my computer shut down. I should be connected. Perfect. So one thing that, these federal government sites, none of them move particularly quickly either. That's why I usually try to have these preloaded when we get here. Okay, so you can see it looks pretty friendly, right? Oh my God, there's a big link for disaster assistance in case you've gotten flooded out by any of the million of hurricanes that we've seen this summer. Apply for a grant. So you're gonna start here with search grants. And it is gonna bring, I'm not sure what this looks like up there. Let me do this so we can kind of see the whole thing. Okay. So on this page, you can see there's a couple different ways that they want you to search, right? You can do by keyword, opportunity number, and CFDA number. Now, for anyone who's used Grants.gov before, you know that this is not particularly robust in its searching capability. I have literally taken the opportunity number, which is just the number that the federal government assigns to every grant that they give out. I've literally taken that, punched it into that box before, hit enter, and not found the grant that I was looking for. I had to go another way. Same thing with CFDA number. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So let's say we're just looking for a grant. Literary arts, let's go for that one. And I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to leave that right like that. You can see here on the side while this is thinking that that was quick, that there are all sorts of ways that you can kind of narrow this down. But I'm going to tell you that that doesn't always work very well, because the agencies and the program offices themselves load everything into grants.gov, and sometimes they get really, really creative with how they do the fields, so they don't always pull up what you think they should pull up. You'll notice over here on this eligibility, okay, so we got governments, we got county governments, we have for-profits, school districts, nonprofits, there we go right there. So, higher education tends to be held separately. And then we have this other category. And this drives me crazy because a lot of the agencies will put other in their eligibility. And then they will take all of those other things, everybody who's eligible, and they'll type it into a text box that doesn't get searched by this. So you can't just click nonprofit and think you're going to get everything for nonprofits. Because the program office may have put other and then literally typed nonprofits into the text box. So it just doesn't work very well. It's just not a very user-friendly experience. Let's say you did actually, and then you can see that also we searched for literary arts. Okay, so the first one's good. We have a literature fellowship, good deal. It's a couple of things from NEA. Department of Defense HIV and AIDS prevention. Not really what we're looking for here, right? Not gonna be the most robust thing that you're ever gonna find. Grants.gov is a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. Now compared to Google, and I'm gonna go ahead and set us up here because we do this one all the time. If I say I'm working on some environmental education, I want to teach kids about how to grow a plant or about climate change or anything else, or maybe our climate here in Texas, I can just type this in and you'll see the very first thing, actually a whole bunch of them. EPA, environmental education grants. They come right up there. If I search that same thing in grants.gov, it's not going to work so well. If I can spell it right. Google also spell checks for you. This doesn't. Okay, so if I hit search here, I'm not seeing that same grant, right? I'm seeing something for Institute of Education. Most of these are research and development. That's not for me, right? That's for somebody who's a PhD in a university somewhere who wants to do research. That's not for me who wants to teach kids about the Texas climate, okay? So if we come here, you can see we're going to click on this environmental education page. It takes us to the EPA website. This is one of those agency websites that I was talking about where you kind of want to seek them out. You can see down here we have funding opportunities, grants and how to apply. That's really convenient. We didn't see that link in grants.gov anywhere. And then here we go. We know all about our grants, right? So we see what the grants will do, what they're targeted, what their purpose is. You can see how to apply, education forms, researches, grants awarded. If you have any questions about whether if your project's going to be a good fit for that grant, read who else they've awarded. Look at some of the other projects. If they've done projects like yours, they might do yours too. If they do absolutely nothing like what you do, don't bother, it's a waste of your time. Move on to another opportunity. Okay. So let's stick with this environmental education grant here for just a minute. So at the end of the day, what we're looking for is this document right here. Oops, I missed it. This document right here where it says local grants RFP. Now there are a number of words that the federal government is going to use for their grant application, the things that tell you what to do. Sometimes you might see RFP, you might see NOFO, which is Notice of Funding Opportunity. You might see NOFA, Notice of Funding Announcement. We've called it an FOA throughout this presentation, which is a Funding Opportunity Announcement. You'll see that as well. So we're just going to be consistent with using that language, so it's only one thing. But this is the document that you're looking for. You're looking for this FOA, this RFP. That's the thing that's going to tell you how to be successful when you're writing grants. All you guys should have gotten an email, or it might not be in your packets. But you guys should actually have that RFP with you, this one right here that we're talking about. And if you don't, I've got a couple extra copies here. We're going to do an exercise with it. But you can probably flip through it. You can see this is your guidebook. This tells you what you need to know about that application. Did you have a question? Oh, I'll pass them out in just a minute. So this is it. This is what we're looking for, right? So when you actually find a grant and you've kind of looked at the awarded grants and you say, man, this is a good opportunity. I think that this is really going to be a good match. This is really successful. Writing our proposal. You want to read this thing really, really carefully. I actually make my staff put together a checklist of all the required elements. They hate it. They hate it. They're like, Dina, we know what we're doing. We submit this grant all the time. You never know when you're going to change something on this. You want to make sure you're reading this really carefully. Like I said, I make them put together a little matrix that has all the big level questions, all of the required elements, whatever attachments need to go in, stuff like that. And then as you're reading it, you want to ask yourself, are we eligible, right? So maybe it came up as a nonprofit, maybe it came up as other, but are we the kind of agency that this place wants to do? Maybe we're a nonprofit, but it only funds schools, and we're not a school, even if we're doing some kind of education. Maybe it only funds libraries, and we are a school. Okay, so you want to make sure, are we the kind of organization they want? Are there special criteria? We get a lot of those here. Some of the grants that I used to work on, We used to have to maintain an emergency operations plan at a certain level for the life of the grant. Of course, we didn't have a problem with that we actually had it at a higher level. But if you're a small nonprofit, you may not have an approved emergency operations plan at a medium level, right? That might not be something you have, so you want to look for those special criteria. They can kind of be sprinkled all over the place. And then, like I said, do we have a good project fit? Does our project do what they want to do? If it's not a good match, it's just not a good match. Move on. Because you're just going to spend a lot of time and energy writing that application and not see anything for it. And like I said, go ahead and look up those prior awards, see if they've done stuff that's just like yours. So as you're looking through this, who should write your application? You can see I've gotten all caps up here, not a vendor. If you take nothing away from me today, don't ever let a vendor email you and say, I can give you this grant and write a grant application for you. For a couple of reasons, and we'll kind of talk about them, but so first of all, you're not going to get a very good product out of a vendor. You're going to get a really shiny sales brochure for whatever they are producing and making and want to sell to you. Okay, you're going to get stuff about their product. Nothing in there about your agency, about your needs, about who your clients are and what they need. They're just trying to sell a product, that's all they're going to do. The other thing is that if you do happen to get that grant, if you are that lucky, they're going to expect to get the money for it, right? And we can't do that with taxpayer dollars. Remember, we're working with taxpayer dollars here. We've got to have bids, we've got to have open competition. So if a vendor comes and writes a grant for you, of course they're going to tell you, no, you can sign that contract with me, it's okay. But it's actually not. If you ever get audited, you could owe that money back to the federal government. If you've already given it to them, that comes out of your operating budget, right? The other reason I say not to let a vendor write your grant is because if they've contacted you, they have contacted a lot of other people. I used to serve on the review panel here locally for some Homeland Security grants that were specific to nonprofits. And about $8,000 was available in the grant. And every single year, we had multiple identical applications for a security system. Cameras and closed circuit TVs, that sort of thing. Identical applications that happen to be for exactly $80,000, by the way. Same system you could go buy for $5 grand at cons, they're charging $80 grand for it. Okay, so right there we have a problem. But they were identical. Literally, as you're flipping through them, you're like, I've literally read this before. Do you think we funded any of those? Not a single one. And this was year over year over year. This security system company was going to all these little, and they were churches and things like that. They didn't know any better. Going to all these people saying, I'll get you that grant. But they did it for 5 of them at a time. And reviewers can tell. When you read 100 grants, you can tell which ones have been done well by someone who knows what they're talking about. And it's very clear when it's just a brochure for somebody's security system, right? So don't ever trust a vendor. We get them all the time here. I get people from other departments emailing me all the time. Hey, can we do this grant, this vendor that I want to buy their product anyway? They said they'll get a grant for it, so that's a really good deal, right? They'll write it, we don't have to do anything. And I say, no, if you're interested in that grant, we'll look at an application. We'll write it, not that vendor, because they're just not going to do a good job. I've worked with them before, they don't do a good job. You do want to make sure also that you're not competing against yourself. Obviously, you want to work with somebody who knows your organization really, really well. A lot of grants have project limits. They may tell you you get 1 project and that's it. And if you submit 2, everything gets thrown out. So now you've really done a bad job, right? Now you've got both your applications funded out. Nothing's going to get funded because they're all just thrown away. It also doesn't make you look very good to funders. Again, you get these review panels, they're reading all the applications. If they see 2 completely separate applications from the same organization, they're going to say, hey, if you don't know what's more important to you, I don't know what's more important to you. So they'll score you down. You may not get funded on either of them. Whereas if you had only submitted 1, it's clear what your priorities are. Or even better, if you had been able to integrate them into a single application, you may have gotten funded with just 1, but here you kind of messed up. You competed against yourself. So just making sure that you're coordinating that, even if you're a small nonprofit, you want to make sure that one of your board members isn't doing something that your other board member is also doing. Okay, so we're going to take this document right here. We've got take about 5 minutes, work with a partner, using some of the stuff that we just talked about. You have a little exercise template that says how to read the FOA. So with your partners, and I've got extra copies here, go ahead, take about 5 minutes, read through here and see if you guys Yes. There you are. No problem. Maybe over here, you guys? You guys are good, right? Sorry. Thank you so much. Y'all want to share one together? Maybe over here? It's right there. And you should have a little link sheet. Somewhere there. There it is right there. Here. Yes. All right, so I know everybody's still looking, but let's see if we can start going through some of these things. So how to submit, who found that? Anybody find that? You found that. Okay, so how do you submit? Electronically through Grantsgov. What page did you find that on? The first page, right? Page number 1. How about when the due date is? Who found that? Yeah, yes, okay. I'm gonna make you guys yell. Nobody wants to hear me. You guys gotta say so too. Okay.
April 8th, 2016 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time.
Eastern time. So what does that mean for us here in Texas? It's up by an hour. It's 10:59. Always gotta be careful of that. Sometimes you'll think the grant's due at midnight or 11. It's really due at 5 o'clock. Maybe it's due at noon or 3 o'clock. So you always want to be careful where they're talking about. If it says Eastern time, we're an hour earlier than that, right? For when we have to submit. How about the performance period? Anybody find that? Okay. All right, so starting August 29, 2016, that's our expected start date down the bottom. And then we can apply for either 1 or 2 years. Do you guys think you should apply for 3 years worth of funding? Probably not. It should probably be 1. You think you should apply for 18 months? Probably not. It should be for 12 or 24 months, right?
Or 8 years.
Does it say 18? All right.
But do they prefer exam 12 or 24?
Not if it says anytime, so you can do anything from but don't do 6, right? Maybe I should use that example. All right, how about a cost share? Anybody find a cost share? 25%. What is that? We'll talk about that a little bit. What does that mean? That means our money. You've got to pay for 25% of the project. Then how about unallowable costs? Anybody find those? Page 11. What are some of those? Not all of them.
Technical training, lobbying, non-educational research.
Okay, good. All right, so no construction. You can't do research to develop something for your private business because it's not going to be educational, it's going to be for profit. You can't lobby. You can never lobby with federal funds. That's kind of a big deal. You can't do technical training, right? It's got to be educational, not technical for your staff. How about the number of awards and the award range?
They are 3 grades at 91,000.
Okay, 91,000? All right, so that's really important to know, because that'll help you to understand. If they say they're going to give an average award, or if they're going to say worth no more than 91,000, you want to make sure that that's what you're applying for. Sometimes they'll say like, oh, it'll be an average award of 50,000. That gives you a clue that they're looking for a project that's $50,000. You know, it doesn't mean, now here it says no more than, so if you apply for 92, they aren't going to do that, right? That's not what they're looking for. But sometimes they'll say, oh, they're going to be about 50,000 a piece. You probably don't want to submit 100,000 on that. It's just not really, unless it's a really compelling application, they're not going to give you all of that. Yes, sir.
So when you're writing your grants, if it says 91,000 max, they typically write for 91,000 or that's not sellers?
So you typically want to write for 91,000? Yeah, now you want to write for what's appropriate for your project. If you can do it with 80, don't inflate your budget by 11,000 just to hit that mark. But you want to make sure that that's about what they're looking for. That's what they expect it to cost. So
then if you have a project that really is only going to cost $10,000, probably this is not the grant to apply for.
it might not be the best grant to apply for. They may be, that may tell you that they're looking for something that's a little bit bigger than what you have planned. So it may, again, it may not be a great project. And then you want to pay attention to the number of awards. If they tell you it's only 1 or 2 awards are going to be awarded nationally, you better have a really great application. Because you've probably got to beat out 1,000 other people to get one of those awards. They're telling you it's going to be 30, 40, 50. That's a little bit less competitive, right? So it just gives you an idea of what to expect. You shouldn't be sad if they're giving out 1 award and you're not one of them, right? It doesn't mean you did a bad job. It just means it wasn't the perfect grant.
Well, this one said like the regions, So it's them doing, is the 3 grants for the regions?
So some of the, EPA, some of the federal agencies, they may be nationwide. EPA is regional, so they have, I think, 6 EPA regions throughout the country. So that, again, that tells you who you're competing against and how many it is. Okay, we already did expected start date. Then here, this one's really important. How about the scoring criteria? Anybody find that?
It's, well, and I said,
You don't have to read it. I don't have to read it all up.
yeah, I wrote it down and then I didn't write down the page number.
29 to 33 is what I have on my cheat sheet.
Project summary, description, evaluation, budget, timeline, logic, partner letters, and program capability, past performance.
Okay, so this is pretty important, right? They're literally telling you what they want to know and how many points they're going to give you for everything. Okay, if they're going to say that your project summary is only going to get 5 points, do you really want to spend a ton of time on your project summary? Or is that time better spent working on your project description, which is 45 points? Okay, if you only get 5 points for that summary and you have, I don't know, 20 pages to write your grant, do you want the summary to take up 3 pages or do you want it to take up 1 page? Probably 1 page, right? Do you think that maybe your project description in that case should be almost half your application? Because that's how many points. So they're literally telling you, here's how you do a good job. Not every grant's going to give you scoring criteria. It's really great when they do, because they're literally telling you what you need to spend the most time on. I got a grant from one of our departments here, and it was like this. They had given us the scoring criteria, and they were going to give us something like 10 points for like our bios and who was in our project management, who was going to be managing. But, you know, just like this, the project description was for, you know, about half the grant application. We only had 10 pages, everything was real tight, we didn't have a lot of room. Well, they submitted me 1 page of project description and 4 pages worth of bios. And I said, oh gosh, this is way backwards. We need to flip this. I need 1 page of bios and 4 pages of project description. I was like, go. It was a really technical grant, so we couldn't write it. Sometimes we don't always have that information. So I was like, go redo this, flip this around. Put a lot more emphasis where we're going to get the most points. All right, and then the very last question. Who do you contact if you have questions? Anybody find that? I think it's on the very last page. You guys might not have gotten that far. Page 36. This lady named Bonnie King. So that's also a really good point. If you ever have questions, if you're not sure, maybe you can't tell if you have a good project fit, think of your contact person. Go ahead and call that person. Say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think about this? Okay? If you're not sure, for example, on that cost share, how to calculate that, if it's 25% over the 91, or if the 25% comes as part of the 91, right? That can be a little confusing. They're really inconsistent from grant to grant. Go ahead and call them and say, hey, how do we do this? How are you guys doing this cost share? It never hurts to start developing those relationships with the program offices while you're still in the application process. It never hurts, right? It never hurts to ask a question. Better to ask a question even if you feel stupid, because you're going to look a lot stupider later when you submit a grant that wasted everybody's time because it really wasn't a good grant. So that's just a little exercise to get you used to how you're going to read these things. Where are you going to find this information? What's important when you start reading this stuff? So another part of the federal application, so that'll tell you a lot about how to do your narrative, all the instructions. One of the things that can be really scary about federal grants is this SF424. And you guys should have gotten 2 copies of this in your packets, especially if you printed them at home because they've got some highlighting on them. One that's blank and then one that's already filled in for you. I don't know about you guys, but I know some people completely shut down when they see buoys. My mom, if I put this in front of her, would like die. She would never, she would get past the first page of this. She cannot do forms. You put a form like this in front of her, she's like, forget it, I can't do this. It's too much work, I'm not even good at So they can be a little bit intimidating when you're doing it. The nice thing about these 424s is that they highlight for you everything that you have to fill in. And as you flip through it, you'll realize that not all of the boxes are highlighted. Right? So there's a lot of extra information that you don't actually have to provide them. Okay? I'm not going to go through it one by one because I think we're kind of squeezing on time a little bit. But you can see as you flip through these examples what you've got to fill in. And then we've actually provided you guys a filled-in example. I literally have a binder on my desk for when I fill out grants, and every time I have to do a 424, I have a sample in there, and I open it up and I snap to me so that I can make sure I'm hitting everything and filling out all the places I have to and not doing too much. Yeah, we'll mail it out again after. So that's just, if you guys kind of take some time to flip through that, you can see exactly, like I said, there's a lot of extra boxes in here that do not need to be filled out. One thing to keep in mind, not all of your agencies are going to use this form. I probably should have said this earlier in the presentation. I would love to stand up here and tell you that the federal government works the same, that every agency, every office works the same and does the same thing. They say they do, right? They say Grantsgov is a one-stop shop, but not everybody uses it. They say this 424 is a required document on every grant application, not everybody uses it. I'd say probably about half the grants I do require this 424 when we're talking about federal grants. Not all of them do. Now, all the information that you have to put in here are things that they're going to collect. So you're going to have to put your project name, you're going to have to put your legal address, your DUNS number, your EIN, all of that. All the same stuff has to go in. But a lot of them don't necessarily use this piece of paper right here, or this, it's actually a PDF. Not all of them use it. So again, just read that FOA, make sure you're reading through there to see, do I have to do this 424? Or do they have a different website I'm supposed to go to submit this application? Some of them, you do it completely different. They've got their own agency website where you submit everything. So you just really want to make sure you're reading through that FOA, getting everything that you need to get. So here's common application elements. We're not going to go through these too much. These are going to be just like what you would see in every other grant application you've ever applied for. A couple of different things that I want to highlight that may be different for federal grants than for some private grants that you might be used to. Your letter of intent. So this is the thing that goes in before you actually submit the application. Again, this is not going to be consistent. Not every grant is going to require this. Sometimes it is used as a pre-screening tool. So sometimes they say, all right, everybody submit letter of intent. We're going to narrow that down and we're going to invite 30 people to apply. Sometimes it's just a tool for them to gauge how many reviewers they need. So it's just kind of a prep for them, for the agency, so that they know about how many applications they need to expect. Some of them are going to be really specific. Sometimes it's an actual letter that you type up and submit, that you might email or something like that. Sometimes it's going to be a website, and I've seen this before, and you're like, this is not a letter. Why are you calling it a letter of intent? You type your name, your project name, your address, and you can submit. That's it. So again, you want to be sure you're reading that FOA and that RFP, so that you know exactly what you have to do. Don't bother writing up a letter if you just have to type in a couple of fields on a form, right? Don't waste your time. Your abstract, again, this isn't always going to be in there. 1 page or less. Should contain some of that information there, kind of a bullet point, kind of the summary of your whole application. Who are you? How much are you asking for? What's the high level of your project? Sometimes your abstracts, the federal agencies will actually say, this is what's going to go on our website. So make sure it's really succinct. This is what the public is going to know about your project. Sometimes you actually have to put a sentence in there that says, yes, you can give this to the public. Although all of our federal applications are always public information. And of course, it should be the last piece of the application you write, just like anything else. When we talk about the program narrative, here's where I think you might see some categories that you're not going to see in some private grants. Particularly the difference between the management structure and the organizational capacity. Organizational capacity is kind of a weird one. On federal grants, they want the really technical stuff. They want to know how many grants you've managed before, if you've ever managed a federal grant before. Why do you think you can take care of taxpayer money, right? Whereas your management structure is who's going to run your program, who's your project director, who's your coordinator, who's taking care of your budget, that sort of stuff. The other thing to pay a lot of attention to, especially on federal grants, is sustainability. Again, these are taxpayer dollars. This is my money. I don't want anybody wasting my money. You guys don't want anybody wasting your money either. So a lot of times the federal government, they really want to know, when this funding goes away, how are you going to sustain what we've built? We're giving you this money to build capacity at your organization because we've decided there's a national need for it. How do we know we're not going to give you $100,000, $200,000? And then as soon as the money is gone, so is the capacity. They put it there for a reason, right? They want to make sure they can go on and on and on. Also, one of the really big things for the feds, especially for Congress people, is they love to be able to say, well, I gave them for every dollar that I gave them, they perform more. So that's kind of what they're talking about. They want to know how you can sustain it. When they give you that 100,000, how are you going to turn that into more? How are you going to keep it going into the future? Of course, not all the elements are going to be included on all grants. I wish I could tell you that they're all the same. They really aren't. So again, refer to that FOA. Just a couple of things to keep in mind about the program narrative. Reviewers are going to come from all across the country. Somebody in California or Illinois or Idaho might be reading your grant application and scoring it. They don't know anything about Dallas. They don't know who you are. They have no idea. They don't live here. They don't work here. They don't know if you say South Dallas what that means, right? You need to give them some context. You want to make sure, like you're explaining to somebody from Mars, right? You want to make sure that you're giving them that context. That if you say something like, well, this is going into, historic lumber place, that you tell them what that means. If you say it's going into Pleasant Grove, you tell them what that community looks like, who they are, and why this is a need specifically for them. Really important to give all of that context, because again, people who are going to be reading this grant and scoring it, they don't know us. They don't know us from anything, right? I've scored grants from Kentucky, New Jersey. I've sat on panels with people from California or Maine. I mean, it's all over the place. Your attachments can also be really useful. Or even if you embed a map into your narrative or something like that. Just so that you can give those people some context so that they understand why is it a need in this area of the city versus this one, that sort of stuff. You, of course, always want to make sure you're showing how your project fits with the national priority. Again, the feds have identified whatever they're funding is a national need. So make sure you're tying it all the way back in. Yes, it serves our local community, but how does it fill that national need as well? And then again, I keep saying this, but always be cognizant of the fact that it's taxpayer dollars. This is our money, right? Don't waste our money. So again, they really want to make sure that you're paying attention to that organizational capacity. Can you manage it well? And then how are you going to sustain it? Your budget, so we're leaving narrative. Your budget is always, and this is true on every grant, it's the most important part of your application. This is how you're saying how you are going to spend taxpayer dollars. Okay? When we're talking about federal grants, we need three things. They need to be reasonable, allocable, and necessary. So what does that mean? Well, reasonable means you're paying a reasonable cost for something, what someone would expect that to cost. Allocable means you can actually allocate that cost to your program. Okay, that's kind of the difference between a program cost and an operational cost. If you can't allocate the cost of the lights being on to that program, don't put it in your federal budget. A really good example is, let's say you need supplies for your organization and you want to buy paper for your copier. But a whole bunch of different departments use that copier. A whole bunch of different people use it for all different projects. You're probably not going to sit there and count out the individual pieces of paper, right? That's not going to happen. You have no idea how much this project versus that project are really using. Okay, unless you can allocate it, it doesn't go in. And then necessary. It's got to be a need for your program. It has to be an actual need. You know, if you're doing an after-school program where you're teaching kids math, you probably don't need to buy the Charles Dickens books, right? Not going to be a necessary cost, not necessary to your program. You also want to make sure that you're not paying premium funds just because you have grant dollars. So to point to your question before, well, should I be writing for $91,000? Only if that's what it's actually going to cost. I can tell you a really heartbreaking story. A couple years back, 2009, we here in the city, we felt the recession a little bit after everybody else did. We all had 700 people got laid off, and we all took a 5% pay cut. And I went to my boss. I said, boss, I'm grant funded. My money's here. I don't touch general fund. I don't have to worry about the taxpayers with the general fund shortage. I'm grant funded. My money's all here. But I had to take a 5% pay cut just like everybody else, because otherwise we would have been paying a premium for my services that we wouldn't have paid if I were general fund. Okay? If in your operational dollars you need to buy a van and it's going to cost $25,000, just as you have a grant fund for $35,000 doesn't mean you should pay $35,000. Okay? It's important to know, and I see this all the time. I see my especially the police officers do it, from the police departments here. They'll go to the vendor and they'll say, hey vendor, I like your product, I've already picked it, it's great. I have $100,000, what can you do for me? It's like, that's not the way to do it. That's this because I think that this is a really hard thing for some people to get. You can only put stuff in your grant application, your federal grant application, that's not already funded, okay? Isn't a cost that you're already picking up with your operational fund or your annual fund or whatever else you want to call it. Okay, that's something called supplanting, and it's really bad. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time on this. So supplanting, because it's not something you encounter in other kinds of grants other than federal. So supplanting is when you take an already funded expense and you replace those dollars with grant dollars. You take something you're already doing in your general fund and you go, oh, I have a grant. I'm gonna take that grant, I'm gonna pay for that instead. I'm gonna spend this money someplace else, right? Federal grants especially are always meant to supplement what you're doing, not supplant. So if you're already serving 300 kids in your program, the federal government will give you the money to get to 400. They're not gonna give you the money to continue to serve 300. Right? That's what we mean by supplanting. They're always there to expand what you're already doing, introduce a new program, make your existing programs bigger, not to take the place of what you're already doing. Yes, sir?
This may not be a question for right this moment, but suppose we have 300 students and we're working to get to 400 students. If federal grants tend to be reimbursement sort of situations, you will have gotten to 400 students and then isn't the argument, well, you got to 400, awesome, now you can do it. Why should we give you a grant for something you've already achieved? Does that make sense?
So that does make a little bit of sense. I think I know what you're saying. You're saying, if I already have to pay for the 400 before they'll reimburse me,
Yeah.
why am I gonna? Because you didn't budget for that. You really only have a budget for 300. And the federal government, when you get that grant, is essentially saying, go into a hole so that we can give you the money.
Yeah.
If that makes sense?
Sure.
So yeah, you're not really, even though yes, it's probably coming out of the same bank account, of course you have to make sure your financial system, it goes back to those financial system requirements. You're gonna have your 300 students budgeted in one fund. Maybe it's your operating fund, your annual fund, whatever you wanna call it. You'll have the other 100, the cost for those other 100 budgeted in your grant fund. So in your financial system, those things will be separate. Even if in your bank account, they aren't.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so let's, like I said, we're gonna spend a little bit of time on this because I think it's not something that people, a lot of my staff came from the nonprofit world and we get into arguments about supplanting all the time. So I spend a lot of time on this. All right, so this is Susie. She runs one of our programs and she's funded. We've had her salary for years. But wait, a federal grant comes along and it's gonna pay for that program. Okay, it's the program that she runs. Can she be paid out of the grant? No, that's literally what we're talking about. That's literally the definition of supplanting. Now, Susie can be an in-kind match, and we'll talk about, I think we have some match slides in here, so we'll talk about that in a little. All right, how about this one? Here's Angela. She runs one of your programs. She's 100% funded. You've got her position. But a grant comes along. It's going to allow you to implement a brand new program, something you've never done before. Angela's going to move over to that program. She's going to run that. You're going to hire somebody to do her whole program. She has really good procedures in place. It's handled. Can you pay for her out of the grant, for her new position? Yes, you can. Perfect. All right, so you guys are good with this. Here, this one's a little tricky. So this is Jill. She spends about 25% of her time on running her programs, right? So she's kind of split. She doesn't do everything. She like most people in nonprofits, she wears like 7 hats, right? So a federal grant's going to come along that's going to let that program be expanded. You're going to go from 300 students to 400, right? So now she's going to have to spend 40% of her time on the program. And you're going to hire a temp to help her with the other stuff, right? So everything's still going to get done. Can you pay for her salary out of the grant?
No, only the new percent.
Only the new percent. Only the new percent. Yeah, only that additional 15%. What if you weren't hiring that temp?
Then you couldn't pay her.
No, you couldn't pay her at all. Here, you guys really got it. You guys are good at this.
So
Yes,
this
sir.
only apply to federal grants or is it all grants?
So this is specifically going to apply to federal grants. Technically, state grants are going to be like this too, although they don't push it as much. They, they might get you on the back end and say, that was always a requirement, but I'll tell you. Private grants, maybe not. We got a grant here from the Rockefeller Foundation who was going to pay for somebody. And I was like, hey look, so we're not going to hire somebody new, we're going to take our existing person, we're going to put them in this program, we're doing some restructuring, I said, we can still pay for her salary out of this grant? And they were like, yeah, you absolutely can. And I was like, okay, I need you to say the words, you can say it. And they did, so it was okay. So not always on private grants, but definitely on federal, usually on state stuff.
So what about a situation where, for example, you, like
you genuinely don't have money to fund them out of your regular budget anymore. Your donations are drawn up because everybody's donations are drawn up these days, right? In that case, you actually have to really do it right, you actually have to formally lay that person off and then rehire them. You've got to be able to show your org chart before and after, or your old budget and your new budget and that sort of thing. You want to be real careful. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you have to be really careful and make sure you're really meticulously documenting how that all happened.
So that's the same thing that you want from grants and grant. So your job is granted, and your grant runs out, you have new grants starting.
No, grant to grant's okay. It's just when it's a locally funded thing and you're moving into a grant fund, that's when you can't do it. If you're in a grant fund, that grant goes away and you move, that's okay. That's what you do that right, because you didn't have that money then locally. So this is in here. So this is a fire truck. It's reached the, it's scheduled to be replaced. Your city council said, all right, we're gonna buy 20 new fire trucks this year. But hey, wait, a federal grant comes and they're gonna pay for fire trucks. But you don't need 21, right? You still only need 20. Can you pay for this out of the grant? No, you can't. So this is in here just to demonstrate that the supplanting not only applies to year-over-year costs like salaries, a person that's funded for multiple years, it also applies to one-time costs. So at the start of your fiscal year, you pass a budget that includes that 15-person van for you to pick kids up from school and take them to your after-school program and home again. It's included in your budget that halfway through the year a grant comes up that's going to pay for that. Even though it's a one-time cost, that also counts as supplanting. So that's just to demonstrate that.
I really don't, honestly, maybe I'm evil, I don't know. But I really don't understand that. If the city's going to buy 20 fire trucks and there happens to be a grant that comes along to pay for a fire truck, why wouldn't they apply for a grant to help them with the cost? The city, I mean, I don't understand why.
So if it's not an already budgeted cost and you're forecasting ahead, then you can do it. But if it's like my budget's already locked in, it's already been voted on, it's already being implemented, you can't replace those local dollars, those dollars you have in the operating fund with federal dollars. Because then that frees up that money for you to go spend on a project or a purpose that the federal government never intended, something that's unallowable. So we'll send that after. Yeah, it's a hard thing to get. I know one of the things that I always struggle with my staff is they're like, well, we never know. We always have to cobble together salaries. It's never for sure. And I'm like, yeah, but these are the rules. I get that to a certain extent, but if you put it in your budget, it's in your budget. You intended to pay for it locally. You gotta stick to what you intended to do in the first place.
So if you start to bring in, when you're doing 25%, just getting it off the ground, and it becomes your full-time job, then are you actually wasting 75%?
So it depends on where that other, so the question is, like, let's say you're starting up a program, it only takes a little time, and then it starts getting going and you have to turn it full time. It depends. You always want to use the rule of thumb that if it's extra money out the door, the grant will pay for it. If you're supplementing. If you're not going to hire somebody back, if now you wear two hats that are practically 100% of your time, if you're not spending any extra money that what was already budgeted, you can't do it. So.
In this scenario, we say, can't buy the property, could I then say, well, I have technology,
Sure, because you didn't have that already budgeted. So the question was, could I take the trucks I'm already going to buy and add technology to it? Put radios, put whatever else you need. In that case, yes. If it wasn't already budgeted, you absolutely can.
But then
So-
if you
If it's not an extra dollar out the door, you can't pay for it with federal funds, okay? So as you're developing the budget, you want to, just like any other grant, you want to identify all the costs that you think are going to be necessary. You want to, of course, make sure that they're tied back to program goals, right? You want to always make sure that you're just not throwing extra stuff in there just because you can, just to get an extra $11,000 in there. So you want to review those costs, make sure they're reasonable. Do you actually have to hire additional personnel, or do you have people on board who can do it? Do you actually have to rent? We could have rented a hall to do this training, right? But Jill has it available for free. So can I just get it for free? Okay, you want to make sure that they're actually necessary costs. You don't have to rent space, don't rent space. You don't need to buy a car for somebody driving in between things, you can just give them mileage instead, just do that, right? Oh, like mileage, like reimbursed mileage or something. You want to make sure they're within funding limits and allowable. If they tell you you can't buy vehicles, don't put a vehicle in your grant fund, right? That should be pretty obvious on the surface, but you'd be surprised how many applications I see that do have stuff like that in there. And then again, you may have to project your future costs. As you flip through that 424, the last couple pages are 424A, which is again a really scary sort of like, why is it all numbers and letters? It's just where you project your future costs. You say, okay, my program's going to ramp up in the first year, so I'm going to spend 25% of my money. The second year, I'm going to be fully operational, be 75, right? You're usually not held to that. It's just an estimate of what you think you're going to do. It helps the agencies project out what they're going to spend every year so they can report that back to Congress. A couple of things on the budget categories. Again, I'm not going to go into super detail on this, just highlight what's probably different on federal grants. One thing that might be a little bit weird is that you have to break your base salaries out from your fringe benefits. Okay, you can't just say my person's going to cost me $65,000. You have to say, here's my base salary, it's $50,000. Here's my fringe benefits, they're $15,000. Right? You just got to break them out. That's how they like it. Travel, that's pretty straightforward. You want to make sure that you're going back. There are government rates on gsa.gov. You want to make sure you're using the federal rates in your grant budget and on your program. If you don't use those federal rates for both hotels and per diems, they can come back and they can disallow the whole trip up. So you just want to be really cognizant of that. Federal money, federal rules, right? Equipment, the overall rule is that if it costs more than $5,000 per unit, it goes into equipment. If it costs less than that, it goes into supplies. That can be a little weird for us, right? Because that means things like laptops might not go with equipment. Because your laptop probably doesn't cost $5,000. It's probably going to go in supplies on most of the grant applications. A little bit weird, a little bit counterintuitive. Supplies, again, any equipment that doesn't meet that definition. And then here's where you put your general office supplies, only if they're allocable. You're not going to use that copy paper because you're not going to sit there and count your pages and say, here's my 25 pages that can go to this program, right? But you can buy folders that you only use on that program, right? You can buy pens or clipboards or stuff like that. You can do that. Anything that's contracted out to a third party is going to go under contractual. This might be things like, what do I have here? Evaluator contracts, if you hire an outside person to evaluate your program. Let's say you're running a drug treatment program and you're doing some counseling, but you're actually doing the rehab. They spend 3 weeks someplace else first. That could be a contractual expense. Things like that, if you've got temp help as opposed to someone you're going to hire out of your agency, which goes in contract, because it's usually a contract with the temp agency. You do want to pay attention. Consultants are typically allowed, but they're capped on how much you can pay them per day. And it's something like $450,000. But you just want to be aware of that there's a cap on that federal funds that don't exist elsewhere. Constructions, most grants don't actually allow construction at all. You saw this grant didn't allow construction. If you looked at the environmental education grant, most of them don't, so you can't renovate things. Some will, you just again have to read that FOA. Really big construction grants, like when we submit a grant to build a road, that's a whole separate application. That's a whole separate sort of thing. So again, you just want to be careful, make sure you're not saying, well, I'm going to tear down this wall and put up cubes, if that's not what's allowed on the grant. And then anything else that you think goes into this other category. One thing I will say, because I've seen this come in on grant applications, there's no contingency fund on grants, on federal grants. I know sometimes private grants will say, well, I'm going to put 10% here, just in case costs go up. You can't do that on federal grants. They're going to make you take that contingency out at the end of the day. If I see it all the time. I get grant budget back from our staff here, I review it for other people, I see that all the time. Well, everyone, we put 10% just in case something happens. It doesn't work, that's not much. And then every now and then you'll see something specific in there. They might say, I want cell phone contracts and other instead of contractual. One thing about these categories, I've never seen anyone not get a grant because they're categories of law. Okay, you put something in equipment that really should have been supplies, or in contractual that really should have been other. If they want to fund your program, they're going to come back to you and they're going to say, hey, redo your budget, put that for contractual stuff. I've never seen anybody get a no just because they budgeted in the wrong category. Maybe your budget's bad and wrong, but not just because they put it in the wrong category. So it's not something to freak out about. These are just the general rules. They could be different. Indirect costs, that's really important for nonprofit agencies. This is where you can actually pay for some of those operational costs. That's where you can pay for that copy. That's where you can pay people. Not all grants allow it, so of course you want to refer to your funding announcement. If you're in this room and you haven't had any federal grants before, you probably don't have a negotiated rate. What that means is that you pick the federal agency you work the most with and they approve an indirect cost rate for you. If you're here, your agency probably doesn't have it. But if they do, go ahead and make sure you're using that. Otherwise, they're going to default to 10%. Okay, so that's where you can put in, okay, 10%, this is going to go to indirect costs. That's how you pay for all those little things that could be allocated. But again, keep in mind, not every grant case will allow indirect costs. A lot of those it's not allowed. We actually don't get a lot of indirect costs here in the city because our group rate says we can only apply for it on base salaries as a percentage of our base salaries. So we have to hit the sweet spot of we have salaries in the grant actually allows it, and we have room in the budget for whatever the percentage is for indirect. So we actually don't get a ton of indirect costs here in the city. Matching funds, we talked a little bit about this before. There's going to be two kinds of match. You guys should be familiar with this if you're familiar with grants. There's a cash match. That's where you kind of have money just laying around that you're going to donate to this project. That may be something like you go out and fundraise for that 25% cash match or something like that. It's dedicated just to that fund. And then there's income. That's money you were going to spend anyway, right? That's our person who's 100% funded on the program that now a grant program comes along that can't pay for her salary. She can be an in-kind match. Money you were going to spend anyway. This is where volunteer hours or if somebody donates something to you towards the program, that's where that counts. And there are different rates that you can use. FEMA has some rates for goods. If you get a truck that's used for a day or something like that, they've got some rates. Department of Labor has volunteer rates that you can use for that. And then just keep in mind, I said this before, the match can be kind of funky. Sometimes they're weird. Sometimes it'll say 50% match. But it says the grant will be $100,000. So does that mean it's 50 and 50 or does that mean it's 100 and 100? It's going to be different on every grant. Sometimes it'll say 1 to 1. Same question, is it 100 and 100 or 50 and 50? So if it's really unclear the guidance, go ahead and call your program manager, call that contact, ask them how they want to do it. Real quick, matching funds on federal grants have to come from non-federal sources. So this comes up for us a lot. Like we get these big transportation grants that require like 20% match, but a lot of our transportation money is federal, and it might pass through the state on its way to us. So we have to be really careful when we've got, this pot of money that's going to help pay for that it's not already federal in origin. If it starts at the federal government, it doesn't matter how many hands it passes through, it is always federal. Now, this is again something that I'm going to tell you different than you might have heard before. A lot of grant writing books or things like that, they're going to tell you put all the matching funds in there that you can. Put everything. I've had city departments literally submit me budgets that say their entire departmental budget is matching funds. That might be a good idea on some grants, especially private grants. On federal grants, don't do that. Unless it specifically says in the grant that overmatching is encouraged. If they say 25%, put 25% in that budget. For one very simple reason, which is that once you match a local dollar to a federal dollar, that local dollar becomes a federal dollar. It's subject to all the same requirements, and it is subject to audit. So if you do something crazy, like say your entire organizational budget is a match, which somebody else might tell you to do, that means you've now opened your entire organizational budget up up to a federal level. You probably didn't want to do that. Okay, it reduces your flexibility with how you do things because you got to follow federal rules. And like I said, now everything's subject to audit. So unless it specifically says overmatches are encouraged, if it says 25%, only put 25% in as your match. It's just a good idea. You can talk about other resources in your narrative. You can say, I also bring these other resources. I also have a program manager who's going to work on this that's not funded by the group. So you can talk about some of those things, but don't put it in that budget document. Because once it gets put in that budget document, you're locked in. Okay, we're almost done with some of these things, and then we're going to take a break. So program income. So what is program income? That's anytime you're making money off of federal dollars. A lot of times it's not allowed. But let's say you are running a summer camp, and your kids are going to put on a play, or you're an arts organization, and your kids are going to put on a play, and you're going to charge $5 a ticket for that play. And the grants pay for the production and all that. That would be an example of program income. Let's say you're working with, you're doing a prisoner reentry project or program, and you've got these ex-offenders in there making t-shirts and selling t-shirts. That's an example of program income, okay? Not all grants allow it, so you gotta be careful of that. If they say you cannot earn program income on my grant that's gonna charge a play, that means you don't get to charge for tickets, okay? You do have to, just like matching funds, they become federal dollars. So they're subject to audit. They have to follow all the same rules. You've got to track them, you've got to report them on your quarterly reports that you're going to submit. Sometimes, something to be aware of, they can either be done by what's called the addition or subtraction method. So let's say you get a $100,000 grant and you earn $10,000 on it. Sometimes that means you get a $110,000 program. Sometimes that means you get a $100,000 program and the feds are only going to reimburse you $90,000 because you earned 10. So just something to be aware of. If you're on that subtraction method where they take it out when you earn program income, don't spend $110,000 because now you're going to be on the hook for $20,000, right? Difference between 110 and 90. Like I said, it's subject to audit, and usually if you've got something that allows program income, it's not going to use those standard forms. They're going to be something totally different because it's a different model than is typically used at the federal government. You had a question, I'm sorry.
If there's two back about funds that are touched by federal funds, so for instance, if I get something through the TCA, is that percentage based, or is that like, I got money from the TCA, all of that TCA money now sort of is imaginatively federal? Or is there a way to go back in and say only 10% of that stuff that I got from the state level is stuff that I need to deal with?
So you're going to want to talk to your state level. And I'll tell you the truth, they're not always good enough.
Okay.
Which is really, they're supposed to tell you when it's passed through. They're actually supposed to tell you in the contract. TCA is typically state.
I just got something that said, congratulations, some of this is federal.
Oh, see,
but it says some. So I wasn't
so
sure.
you may want to
It's
call
like-
them that, yeah. It's an issue. It's an issue. You want to ask them. Yeah, I would say call them and ask them.
All right, thank you.
But to give you an example on that, they're supposed to tell you when there's federal dollars involved, if it's a pass-through, like it comes through a different agency. They don't always. The library got a grant not too long ago. And we need to know the source of it so that we can account for it properly, put on all our year-end reports the right way, all that accounting stuff that we have to do. And they were like, we're pretty sure that these are not, it was from a university. We were like, we're pretty sure that these are not university funds. We think this is a pass-through grant, we're not sure. And we called the university and we said, hey, are these federal funds or state funds? Because we have to know so that we can categorize it correctly and account for them. And the woman actually said to me, I worked the person on the phone, and I got to believe it. She said, oh, no, once it comes through us, it's not federal. And I said, no, that's wrong. You need to go back and you need to read the CFR, the law, because that is not the case. So they're supposed to tell you they're not always great about it. The way we actually found that out, because they had no idea, the way we found it out is we actually Googled the program, and we were able to ultimately find a federal grant that they got. Right? So sometimes it takes a little extra work. So your budget narrative, I'm going to kind of blow through this really quickly. You don't always have to do a budget narrative when you're doing a private group, but this is where you tell. So the budget piece, that 424 that you put in there, that's usually just numbers. There's usually no description around it. Sometimes can be combined with a budget narrative. That's where you tell them what it's going to be used for, right? So that's where you say here on your salary calculation, well, we've got a program manager, $60,000 a year, but only half of it is going to be spent on this program. You show them the calculation. At the end of the day, these apparently don't add up, but they should. It should say 30,000. Same thing you can see on the fringe. You don't just want to put a number there. You want to show them how you're getting there. So we pay 1.45% to Medicare. I think it's 6.2 that you guys have to pay Social Security. Your pension fund, your health benefits, whatever else is in there. You want to make sure that that's really clearly laid out. I've actually had people in program offices call me and say, your math doesn't add up. I don't know how you got this number. So you just want to be sure it's really clear how you got to those numbers. You also want to describe, here you can see under this equipment, you also want to describe what it's going to be used for, right? If you're going to buy a big old van that costs $50,000, you want to say, this is going to be used to provide transportation for our homebound seniors to get to our program. You want to make sure that you talk about in your narrative that your homebound seniors don't have other transportation options, and that's why you want to, that's why you have to buy it. But here's where you can explain something. Common attachments, just like anything else, there's a couple that are specific to the federal government. That's your lobbying certification. You say, I promise none of these federal funds are going to go to lobbying efforts. I'm not going to pay any lobbyists with this. Some assurances that say, I promise I read all the rules, I'm going to follow them. Stuff like that. Again, you may be asked for your board roster, you may be asked for a W-9, you might be asked for your 501c3 letter that approved you, any of those things. Maps, things like that, you want to make sure they're getting contact. So these are just some of the examples of common attachments. When you have a letter of support, you want to make sure it's really clear. You can see here we've actually got the project name in there. That's a good idea. You want to make sure that they actually know they support that particular project. Not just a, hey, we think this organization does great work, but we specifically support this program that they're doing. Timelines, if it's requested. I like this one because it ties back all of the activities to the goals and objectives of the programs. It also says who's responsible. That really shows I've thought through how this money is going to be spent and how I'm going to do this. Really shows I'm going to take care of these dollars, right? I really help with this. Maps, like I said, just make sure they're clearly labeled. They help to give you some context. Diagrams, all that sort of stuff, and work chart. These all came from grant applications, by the way, that we submitted. So just a couple of kind of, to sum up everything that we talked about, some of the tips. Always make sure you're reading and following the instructions. Make sure if the funder has asked a question that you answer it. Just last week, I was reviewing a grant application that someone in my office had written, and the instructions said, specifically address what happens if you take no action. And I read through the answer, and at no point was what happens if you take no action addressed. So I sent it back with a note, and it came back still not addressed. And I ended up just writing this up. But if they say something like that, make sure you specifically address this, make sure it's addressed. Because you're not going to get all the points. And the points are just really, I mean, that's the whole thing. That's what decides whether you're funding or not. They ask you a question, make sure you answer it. Make sure someone reads it so they can proofread, right? Nothing looks worse than typos. And then again, you want to keep it concise, clear, and consistent. If you talk about something in your narrative, make sure it follows through. And you talk about a need in your narrative, make sure something in your project description addresses it. Make sure something shows up in your budget. Or you can explain why it's not in the budget. Okay? Don't make your funder guess what you're going to do. There's nothing worse in the world. And again, I've read hundreds of grant applications. There is nothing worse in the world than reading through pages and pages and pages of a narrative, no matter how well written, and sitting there going, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then you get to the budget and you go, oh, that's what you're going to do. I guess. I can assume, but I don't know because you never do. And that can be really hard for us to do, right? It's really hard to forget what we already know and make sure we're explaining something really clearly. So that's where having a friend come in and read it. Not your coworker who already knows the program. Give it to your husband or your wife or your best friend or your sister, right? Give it to somebody who really doesn't know. Because that's who's going to look at it with the freshest eyes. That's who's going to be the closest to the reviewer that doesn't know anything about it, right? So those are just some kind of tips. Submitting your application. Again, you want to pay attention, really, that you're submitting it to the place where you're supposed to. If an attachment says attach it in this spot, don't attach it in a different spot. Put it where they said put it. If it's a two-part application, which a lot of times they are, maybe Grantsgov and another website, make sure you're going to a place following the instructions. And always wait for confirmation that the system has accepted. These federal systems can be slow, very slow, especially when you're coming towards the end of a grant deadline. Sometimes it can take them a long time to process and even just accept the application. I'm no word of lie, thank God we had some time. I once stared at a Grantsgov screen for 2 hours, waiting for the confirmation to pop up that it had actually accepted my application. It's frustrating, it's annoying. My God, you could do better things with your time. But if we had closed the window before that came up, my application would have been considered. So just make sure they're slow, they're terrible. Like I said, there's a couple layers of review. You'll probably get a technical review first from the program office. Every now and then they will come back and ask you to fix something. You are really lucky if they do that. More often your application just gets thrown away because you didn't follow instructions. Okay? But a lot of times they'll come back and they'll say, hey, you missed an attachment. And we'll have the opportunity to make it right. Hey, this is always, your start date's supposed to be August 29th. You put it on this first. Can you fix that for me? That's really great when they do that, because they're giving you the opportunity to fix what you didn't read in the first place. The second layer is typically going to be those big review panels, right? That's where a team of subject matter experts from all over the country comes together. They read a ton of applications, they give them scores, and that's how they decide who's going to get funded and who isn't. They're going to put them in order. Most of the time from a federal agency, they've got to get some kind of approval from the secretary. They've got to sign off on it. So if it feels like your grant's taking a really, really long time for them to let you know, sometimes it's just sitting on the secretary's desk waiting for them to sign paper. And then you should be notified if you're rewarded or not. This is really frustrating. They're always going to tell you if you got the grant. They don't always tell you if you didn't. So you can be like waiting and waiting and waiting, and 6 months later you're like, okay, what's up? And you realize, oh, they announced awards 3 months ago. I wasn't on the list. So just make sure you make a little note, especially if they tell you when they're going to award. Make a little note for yourself, put it on your calendar 3 months out, 4 months out, to go back and check, just so that you have some closure and know if you got awarded for something or not. You can track your application if it went through grants.gov. I'm not going to lie, I never actually do that. I don't worry about it. Once it's accepted, I leave it. Don't be afraid to follow up directly if you see that it's taken a long time for them to get back. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call that contact person and say, hey, when do you guys think you're gonna award these? Have you done it yet? That sort of stuff. Don't ever be afraid of that. All right, that was a lot of information. That's only the first half, of course. Anybody have any questions?
Do they ever return your application if you were not funded with scores?
Yes, they do. It's not in this part. We'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. So let's everybody get up, take a nice stretch, take a 10-minute break. Restrooms are right outside this door over here. And we will come back together at about 5 to 3 to keep going to talk about some of the stuff that happens after you're awarded with a federal award.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.